All right, welcome everybody to the next episode of the Lucid Truth. Today we have Shain Learner. Welcome, Shain.
Thank you, buddy. It's nice to be here.
It's great to have you. Shain is the new co-host for the Lucid Truth, and in this episode we're going to focus on giving him an introduction for his goals, both apart and with the show. So Shain, thanks for coming on board.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I appreciate the opportunity. This is going to be very exciting.
Woo! I'm so happy to have you. So, Shain, can you tell everyone why you decided to join the show and what you hope to accomplish?
Well, I think that we have different strengths. You clearly had the momentum already from the anti-vax thing that you had going on.
Right.
But you didn't have the consistency. There were problems with the audio quality, and I thought I might be able to bring some consistency and audio solutions. And we both agree so well. We've been friends so long.
Right.
This is a great solution for both of us.
It is a great solution. The best interview we've had so far is with Rick Strassman, and the audio is like, well, I wish it would have been a little better because it was such a great interview. It really should have had the audio quality there. So Shane's going to be helping out with technical things. He's going to be getting interviews with people. He's already gotten a few, actually. And he's going to help me host the interviews, which is nice because normally if I get lost in thought with somebody else, it just goes off on tangents and we lose track of the topic that we're supposed to be focused on. So I think that it's going to complement really well. Our strengths together and weaknesses are going to be mutually reinforcing and create a show that you guys are going to be able to enjoy more often and at better quality. So thanks for bringing those skills here. Without you, I think I'd be behind like 7 months to 2 years, somewhere within that range. And so it's really nice to skip ahead that much because that is a lot of work that I would have had to go through and, learn the hard way. So taking shortcuts works sometimes.
Absolutely, man. That's going to be awesome.
It is going to be awesome. So what are some of the goals you have related to psychedelics? I know psychedelics are some of the main things that brought you here to talk about on the show and some passions that you have outside of the show on your own. So what are some of the things that got you interested in psychedelics and led to some of your current goals?
Well, what got me interested in psychedelics is psychedelics.
Oh, great!
Yeah, I've always been a little bit into drugs and enjoying that kind of thing. And it wasn't until I actually started using them that I realized it was so healing.
Right.
I kind of was taking it from the perspective of an escapist, to alter my perspective in some kind of way to be able to deal with the world around me. But in doing so, it gave me especially mushrooms. Mushrooms were key in that, giving me the tool set that I needed to recover from the things that I needed to recover from in order to not be trying to escape from my own reality. And,
Right.
Yeah, so that's where the interest came from. It's honestly the successes. It's Denver and Oakland and Colorado with the cannabis and all those things. Like we're seeing that it's no longer stigmatized. It's not like you got to keep a secret and oh shit, there's somebody coming. Everybody act like you're sober. Yeah.
Been there before.
Right. I've definitely skilled in acting sober. But yeah, that's kind of where it stems from. My goals. I would like to see people be able to use medicines to recover from things that they want to recover from, or to put anything into their body that they choose to, whether it's a medicine or not. But let's start with medicine.
Yes, let's start. I think that would be an easier pitch to get through to the powers
right.
that be.
Right.
With MDMA, they're getting veterans, and that's the pitch. Like you care about veterans, right?
Yeah, exactly. We were talking about Eric Mulder about that on the last episode about veteran administration putting effort or research and money into finding out about mushrooms and ketamine and MDMA for some of the things that they're trying to do. And I think that's really great, even if they're not outright admitting that these things are medicinal.
Right.
They're on the path.
Like Republicans, you say you love veterans so much, so you gotta give them some Molly, right? If you really love them, you gotta let them have access to these healing tools. And so that's a really good start, because that's something that they've already expressed interest in. They already care about their veterans, and they can't really go back on that. It's such a solid platform, we actually don't care about the veterans that much, that was just to get into office, which is probably the truth, but you lose all your voter bases there if you actually admit that.
It's also to build support for the war.
Really?
They say things like support your troops, and what you get from that is support the guys going out and doing it. But in doing so, if you're wearing that yellow ribbon, you're probably supporting the wars.
Right.
And so it's kind of misspeak, like what do they call that, double talk?
Yeah, in 1984.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's an Orwellian one for you. So, did you have a different view about psychedelics and what they were useful for before taking them? And did they change your perspective about their utility once you did?
To some degree. I was an atheist when I first took DMT, and
Oh,
I knew what that one was about. I knew I was like, oh, all right, let's test it here. And like, okay, you're gonna give me a spiritual experience. There's no such thing as spiritual. Um, so I'm gonna smoke it so I can tell you you're wrong. Um, and smoked it to find out that there's some truth to it. Whether there's a spiritual realm that we actually go to or not, the experience and the healing is real.
right.
So, and that way, I guess my perspective was shifted. But with mushrooms in particular, it was a party drug. You know, you take it with a bunch of people and you see some things, and maybe you have fun at a party, but that wasn't my experience. I took it and I want to go alone and meditate, and what the hell? I never want to do that. And
Right.
so,
That's awesome. They were talking to you.
I don't know if the mushrooms were talking to me as much as giving me access to the parts of my brain that I needed access to create the healing.
I think that's a better explanation. The Terrence McKenna stuff is nice, but sometimes it gets a little far out, like when he talks about how mushrooms are interdimensional communication devices to phone home to our alien predecessors. Interesting.
Oh, I love the thought experiment. I just don't want to accept that as truth
Yeah, right.
before we prove it.
Right,
You
when
know?
there's no actual, like, solid evidence other than, like, this dude who took a bunch of mushrooms that's saying it now, like,
You got it 92% right.
yeah, 92, so close to being 100%. More close than anyone else we've seen. That's hilarious. I wonder how many people will get that reference.
Oh, yeah. So,
So what are some of the goals you have with psychedelics now? So that's some of the origin story about how psychedelics helped bring you into the realm of the unknown. Now, what do you want to do now to bring that to others?
well, I'm looking at the success of education for psychedelics. It's gone a long way to reduce the stigma and to educate people that it is a medicine, and often cases, like, of course, you can use them inappropriately, like the
Right.
party drug scenario.
But I feel like that's
Um,
less common than most people assume it is.
Right, and even if you take it to party, it might just teach you something anyway.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But there's been a lot of success with the education of psychedelics, and I would like to. The first prong of my approach would be to continue the education. We need to get out there talking to people about it. Wear a mushrooms shirt so that people will ask you about it, or see that you're not just some drug hippie. Like maybe I do appear to be a hippie, but maybe after talking to me, I might say something interesting to them and maybe open their mind. And so I just want to see that education aspect.
Right, they can actually see the passion that you're expressing when you talk about these subjects, and they see this isn't just something that interests you, it's something you really care about. And want to move forward.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can, too, if you put the effort in. Anyone can. It's just a matter of putting your mind to it and actually getting it done. So you were telling me a little bit about this Spore project. What is that all about?
So that's the other prong of my approach, is there's actually projects going around to decriminalize these drugs, or legalize, or deregulate. That's another good way to go about it.
Like in Denver?
Well, in Denver, they decriminalized. So what
Right.
they did was they made it to where the city could not spend city resources or any money on charging people with psychedelics. So
Okay.
that in that way, you could still be charged with it. Like if you committed a murder and you also were possessing mushrooms, they're going to get you with both instead of just one. But they can't just get you for that, which is a great step.
That is awesome. And that was like 50 to like 49.
Oh yeah, it's
Or
like
something
51
like
to 49.
that?
Yeah, it was very close.
Like so
Very
close. It's like, wow, that almost didn't pass. I remember hearing Eric talking about like they almost stopped counting the ballots.
Oh man.
And then they kept counting them, like, keep counting them, we're going to come back. And then all the last ones are probably the people that were, like, finally getting there, like, I'll vote at the last second. And then that's where all the good votes were.
Yeah, it's probably true that a lot of people who use psychedelics are probably also procrastinators.
Well, that's almost a proof and a direct example right there. Like, all the yes votes are at the end. Like, all the no votes for, like, a bunch of Republicans. Like,
Get in
"All
early, vote
let's
early
go,
and often."
let's, yeah. Exactly what they would say. 100%. Vote early, vote often. That's so funny. So, Normal plays into this, right? They're the cannabis organization. So they don't go into psychedelics, but cannabis kind of is a psychedelic, so it's kind of related.
Yeah, absolutely. Normal's doing great things with education, and they're also working on legal means to make cannabis medicine more accessible. them and the UCLA are also working with cornerstone cases. You know, when there's a case that will set a precedent that will be good for everybody else, they'll put their lawyers on it. And,
Oh, nice. That way there's a backbone to the case.
Right, exactly. So there's that. I'm also working with the Libertarian Party, with the Psychedelic Caucus. And what I hope to do with that is create an interface for the Libertarian Party at the national level to work with groups like SPORE and Normal and any other group. You got a group and you want to interface with the Libertarian Party, you think that something about your group will be supported by us, hit me up and we'll make that happen.
Excellent. So, oh, wow, that's a lot. So you're working with connecting with SPORE, and you want to make a normal organization here because there's
Ohio.
not one
there's
in Columbus.
Not one here. Yeah, there's not
There's
anywhere
not one in
in
the
Ohio.
whole state.
Yeah, there's not one in the state.
Oh my gosh, I thought it was just Columbus.
Right. So this is a great opportunity to get started. We're already here on site at OSU, and I think we're going to be able to find supporters here.
Oh yeah, for sure. We just got to take a walk with the right sign, and then people will start following behind, and we'll start like Americana thing, walking around campus. People won't be able to stop us.
That sounds good. What are you doing tomorrow?
Yeah, let's do it. That sounds great. It's like an outside dance competition with weed. I can't promise I won't be a little stoned for that, but it sounds pretty awesome. Yeah, really, that's really living the passion. I didn't know that wasn't in Ohio, man. We've been slacking here.
Right.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
So
well, it's about time.
Right. So I want to create a group here. You can easily start one if you search for Normal and you don't find one in your group. You can look at how to become associated with them. It's on their main website. We'll put a link in the description. So
excellent. So there is a group on campus on Ohio State called the Psychedelic Association. And Shain expressed interest in joining. They just started on campus. First Ohio State group to have psychedelic in the name. So I called the guy and I was like, hey, does it matter if you're a student? Can you join if you're not a student? And he was like, bro, I'm not even a student. I was like, what? You started this whole thing. So he's joining that, which is going to be really nice because then we can network the Psychedelic Association into some of the other groups that you want to bring to Ohio. Like SPORE from Denver, Normal, and the, you mentioned the coalition, the Psychedelic Caucus? Those are two different things.
Those are two different things. I would like to see a coalition that's not associated with the Libertarian Party. There's things associated with the Libertarian Party like guns and anything. If guns takes you off of the psychedelic case or gay marriage or whatever it is that we like, pro-sex workers, whatever it is that the Libertarian Party supports that you're not into, if you still support psychedelics, I would like you to be able to be involved in the activism. It's not a libertarian issue. It is a human issue. So we can definitely make it happen as a cohesive group.
Yeah, I think that's what makes the coalition strong. They only focus on one thing they agree upon. Rather than like a party where most of you agree on most things, it's like, we might disagree about everything except psychedelics. So let's work together on it.
Absolutely.
So what do you want to do with the coalition?
I would like to... So right now, with the way drugs are scheduled, they are... If there is a horror story about a particular molecule being consumed by somebody and then they commit some crime, they're acting like that's cause to ban it forever. And say there's no medicinal use. It's Schedule 1. There's no medicinal use, and it's going to be... or it's very likely that it's going to be abused. And I don't think that they have the evidence to support that often with a lot of these chemicals that they're placing in this category. And so with Kratom, you saw the success. They tried to put Kratom Schedule 1, and the outcry from the entire nation was so humongous that they weren't able to do it. It completely stopped it in its tracks. And so what I would like to do is get a group of scientists, chemists, anybody who works directly with these molecules that are going to be banned and they won't be able to continue their work. I would like to have them on my side. Any Republican that supports it, I want them on my side. Any apolitical or somebody who doesn't care about politics at all but just thinks that it's a bad idea to be scheduling these things, that's what I want the focus of this coalition group to do, is to stop the scheduling or the newly scheduled drugs. Step 2 might be to go back and unschedule some things that have already been scheduled. But
legit.
We'll get there eventually, right?
Right. So it's going to take the same model as the Kratom thing did, where you have a group of people that express their disinterest so strongly that it kind of puts the government in a position where, like, their hands are kind of tied.
Right. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Public resistance works like that, but it's not very well organized.
Right.
Like, the Kratom thing was just because everyone that loved Kratom got involved. And some of these other scheduled substances, they might not have the fan base that Kratom has. So that's why the coalition can come in handy. Because
Right.
then we can come in and stop any kind of illegalization that causes problems. It reminds me of K2. The first synthetic cannabinoid that came out was remarkably safe. JW-108 or something like that. It was actually good for your brain somehow. So the synthetic cannabinoid. So they banned it. So they banned the safe drug. Then other forms of K2 came out that were very dangerous. Hammerhead, all kinds of different synthetic cannabinoid K2 strains, and they started killing people, and they were really dangerous. So by banning one substance that was safe, a lot of people died by doing the alternative substances, and that's what caused the problem. So if this kind of coalition existed back then, we could stop the initial scheduling of the first synthetic cannabinoid, people would have a safe option, and then they wouldn't have to do the things that killed them. And then, I mean, if weed was legal in the first place, no one would even want that first synthetic cannabinoid.
And even if they don't want the synthetic cannabinoid, or I can't even say it right now.
I think both pronunciations. I think
alright,
it varies
cannabinoid.
on region.
Okay, then I say cannabinoid. Even if it's one that you wouldn't want and there's a better one available, I think that scientists need to be able to use these drugs. What if you can put it through a simple synthesis process and change the molecule in such a way that it cures Alzheimer's?
Right.
You don't know that that's the case unless you can actually do the science. And that's what I want to see. I want to see these guys working with psychedelics and science.
Me too. It would really be a disgrace to see 30 years of research coming back to the surface that's been oppressed for so long, re-oppressed. I mean, 30 years ago, it was so exciting to see what horizons the psychedelic movement was going to lead to. Then it got shut down, and now it's coming back again.
Yep.
So we are not going to let it get shut down again. That is not happening.
Nope, not on my watch.
Yep, exactly. They can try, but they're not going to have very much success. Just like the Kratom thing, but bigger and stronger anytime they try to. So that's a good correlation of different groups that share a similar function that can work together within a given region. So these kind of things can be started by anyone, right?
Yeah.
Living anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. You just gotta hit them up. I actually don't know the whole process on Sport. I've reached out to them, and I'm told by one of my friends that they will get back to me. But it is the holiday season right now,
Right.
so it's a good time to be patient with everybody.
Right.
So I haven't heard back. I don't know the particulars of the process. And just real quick before we move on with the interview, the coalition is not created yet. It's not named, not branded. Right now we are in the process of creating it. We're brainstorming. So keep your eye out for that coming up. But I don't have a link to the website or anything like that yet.
Awesome. So if anyone has any suggestions on clever names, feel free to put them in the comments, and then you get 10% of all profits. Just kidding. There's no, this is nonprofit.
It's a nonprofit.
Yeah, so no monetary incentive, but you can tell your friends you came up with a name for a coalition.
You can have 100% of the nonprofit.
There you go, 100%. Nice. That's very tempting now.
Right?
Awesome. So that's really cool. You're really doing a lot of good work with psychedelics, and that's why I'm really glad to have you on this team, because that's my biggest passion too. Psychedelic legalization, decriminalization. People should have access to their minds. Like,
absolutely.
telling people they can't have access to their own minds, I mean, what kind of totalitarian state is that? And it's a worldwide consensus outside of Portugal.
Well, what's crazy is that the dangerous drugs are legal. I mean, sugar, alcohol. How many deaths from just those two? Just those two. And if you disagree that it's a drug, look at the definition of what a drug is.
Right.
Definitely crosses the blood-brain barrier and
Right.
definitely changes your mental state. So.
Right, just because it's culturally accepted doesn't make something not a drug. A drug isn't based on cultural perspectives on the compound. It's definitely chemical basis.
Right, and I do use both of those hard drugs. I definitely do use sugar and alcohol.
Those hard drugs,
they
like
are,
sugar.
They're the hardest, I think.
That's so funny. Man, what if someone like used this argument against us? Like, you're right, we should ban sugar and alcohol. Those should be illegal. That would be.
I would just. I think that would be a great business opportunity for agorists to go into production of sugar, but I wouldn't support the law itself.
Right, like, yeah, dude, like banning sugar. That reminds me of New York. That's Bloomberg did that. I think he had such an ego that he thought he could tell people what was best for them and make it law. And so he banned large drinks.
Yeah, 44 ounces.
Yeah, large soda drinks, and like his popularity plummeted. Like, nobody likes being treated like a child as an adult, like as a citizen of a municipality. Like, you're not a child. You're gonna regulate my fucking drinks? Like, what's next?
So this is an interesting thought. I don't really support regulations of any kind, but I do want to take note when a regulation has a positive outcome. And so there is the one in Portland where they have it's illegal to sell things to people in styrofoam, which
Oh,
yeah, which like ooh, that's actually kind of good because styrofoam is going to be around forever and ever, and it's not millions and millions of years before it breaks down. And it would be nice if we weren't putting so much of that into the earth. What I want to see is instead of giving that argument to the people who want to make that argument to me, to say this, hey, let's get together, let's make it happen without the regulation. Let's stop it. So that's another way to go with regulation and things like that.
yeah, if the regulation is done after the effect, the free market can solve the problem that the regulation is trying to solve without the force and violence needed to enforce the regulation.
Right.
So then if we see some beneficial regulations, we can try to figure out how to have the same effect without the regulation.
100%. Yeah, replace it.
Right, and then make it work even better, and it's also voluntary at that point.
Right.
So it's
right.
going to be more effective overall.
What we need is the free market to produce something that is cheaper and disposable and biodegradable.
Right.
That businesses would be dumb to not use. So.
Yeah, and the regulations kind of prevent the incentive to make those things to a certain degree.
Right.
So by leaving it to the free market, then it's all the incentive you have. Like when hemp was made illegal. Like, oh, now we can't even use it. Or we could have used it and made it a great alternative to like normal paper. But then that's a kind of different situation. But now that hemp's being legal, it's kind of expensive, even though it's so abundant. So I'm curious how we would be able to lower the prices. It's kind of a consequence of the regulation.
How many growers are making paper? That's a real question. I don't know the data, and I don't have time to Google it right in the middle of this podcast.
Right.
But that's an interesting question. Out of the people who are growing hemp, how many are growing it for CBD? How many are growing so to go to seeds so they can sell seeds? How many are growing for hemp bricks? How many are growing for all these things? There just may not be very many acres of hemp paper, and if you were to have a larger portion, market share of hemp going to paper, it would probably dramatically lower the cost. I don't know that for sure. If I'm wrong on that, please let me know. Contact me.
Is this opportunity right there?
Hey.
I'll buy some of your paper for
Yeah,
sure.
if you have a comparable price, or even if it's like within 50% of regular paper, I'll start using your paper all the time if you do that.
Excellent. That sounds, and that's a consequence of the regulation. Like, if the initial regulation wouldn't have been put into place, we would be using hemp products everywhere.
Absolutely. The
And-
Constitution was written on hemp.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. That's awesome. Man, I'm going to use that argument for people who are constitutionalists now. Like, your Constitution was written on hemp, and you don't like hemp? That is BS. That is BS. That reminds me of the flag guys.
Yeah. Yeah, so here's an interesting thought. So whenever you see a Republican who is very pro-flag talking about how the guys who are burning flags are, disrespecting them in whatever way, maybe they should be harmed in some kind of way. It's interesting to note all of the regulations in flag code, like don't use it as an article of clothing and things like that. I don't remember all the regulations, but there's about 1,000 ways that patriots break that code.
Bro, your bro shirt, man, it's like, that's so disrespectful. Like, they're trying so hard to be patriots, and they don't even know, like, the definitions that they're
Right.
against.
And
you should be burning that flag.
Right, and the code that they're referencing for that is one that they daily break.
Right, they're like wearing an American flag shirt as they're yelling at you for it. Like,
Right.
come on, man, you gotta get your shit straight. So, Shane, so we met 7 years ago, and that was in Denton, right?
Yes, that was in Denton. I was friends with your sister at the time, which you know.
Right.
And she asked me to hang out with you. I wanted to go to this other party, and so she bribed me with some mushrooms.
That sounds like her.
Yeah. So she's like, just keep him out of the mushrooms, okay? And I was like, okay. And like, as I'm having this conversation with her, I turn around and I see him there. He's in the bag, and he's just like stuffing as many. I've never seen anybody eating so many mushrooms so fast. He was scarfing this down, and that's when it was time to take my mushrooms, because that's what kind of night it was gonna be. So the first time we hung out, we tripped together. That was neat. You were 17 at that
I think
time?
I was 16.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we had and that was good because we leveled on our consciousness there.
We had a great trip, yeah.
Yeah, it was
I
amazing.
definitely had a lot of fun talking to you about philosophy and What else did we talk about?
Well, we talked a lot about anarchy philosophy. You told me about your time traveling salvia trips. You were
Oh,
like
right, right.
looking into the future and then manifesting it to happen.
It's but my perspective of that trip was that I was able to. It was showing me what was about to happen, and it was something I didn't want to happen, like falling out of the chair. I saw that I was going to fall out of the chair next in the future, and I'm like, no, 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 I'm not going to fall out of the chair because I'm going to be laying in my bed. I'm going to go get up and lay in my bed, and I go get up to lay in my bed and fall out of my chair, and I'm like, oh my god, everything I did to prevent it caused it. Is there any free will?
That is hilarious, dude. I would be questioning that for like a few months after that. Like,
Right, yeah.
everything.
It happened in a bunch of different ways, not just that one example, but yeah, it was a crazy
That is
trip.
so funny. Yeah, we were talking about everything. Shane was actually the first anarchist I ever met. I was libertarian at the time. When I was 15, I heard about Ron Paul, and I like binged End the Fed and like
100%.
all that stuff. And then so I met him, and he was anarchist. I was libertarian. And then what was that one thing you told me?
I told you that the main difference between a libertarian and an anarchist is about 6 months.
He was pretty much right. Like it was about 6 months.
And you were actually my first anarchist convert that I
Right.
got to come to anarchy through discussion, and
That's so awesome.
yeah, I really love that.
That's so awesome. Yeah, so here's a little bit of my origin story here for anyone that's interested, which is really crazy because I never expected to have that kind of transformation in my life. From like I was really solidly like libertarian, but I was also pretty young. I was like only 16. And so I thought the value system was so interesting that like I became obsessed with it for like several months. And then I, joined pretty much the anarchist coalition. And that was pretty awesome. So yeah, that was really awesome back in the day.
Right on.
Now like 7 years has passed, and it's funny because my sister told you that we were alike, and like I don't think she expected us to be this alike.
Maybe she did, because she was going on and on about how we were basically the same. Y'all are both really smart, and you like to talk about smart people stuff, and you really like each other, I promise. Like, that was her pitch to coming to watch her brother.
Right. And 7 years later, here we are recording a podcast together.
Right.
I could never have imagined it unless I was on Salvia and saw it in the future and tried to make it not happen.
But it would happen anyway.
That's why it happened. That's why we're here. Same exact situation.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. So, on this show, we like to talk about consciousness a lot. And psychedelics, I feel like, are a way to explore consciousness. So, what do you think about the correlation between psychedelics and consciousness? And like what that might be?
Man, is it a correlation or a tool? Maybe psychedelics are a tool to explore consciousness. But you've actually changed my mind on it. I had read this study, the entire thing. It should have been dry, but it was actually, I couldn't put it down. It was by Axel Clearmans. I'll put a link in the description. I can't recall the name of it now, but basically what it posited is that you've got a thermometer, right? And a thermometer is sensitive to temperature. Above one temperature, it's going to behave one way, and below the other temperature, it's going to behave another way. And so in that way, you would say that it's sensitive to temperature, but you wouldn't say that it's conscious of temperature. And what he was saying is the difference between us, because we behave one way at a certain temperature and another at a different temperature.
Right.
We're also in that way sensitive to temperature. But we also have a meta-awareness of our awareness of temperature. As many deep meta as you'd like to go.
Right, we don't just sense it.
And I kind of had taken the position that meta-awareness was where you got consciousness. But you've kind of changed my mind with what it's like to be a bat. Tell me a little more about that.
Okay, so I've actually also changed my mind on this recently, investigating consciousness. I used to have a very different perspective, but now I get most of my source of consciousness from a paper written in the 1800s. It's called What Is It Like to Be a Bat? And it's by Thomas Nagel. And so he compares a rock to a bat, and he says, what's it like to be a bat? Well, it's pretty hard to imagine, like, living through echolocation.
Right.
Like, what's that like? But we don't know what it's like, but we know it's like something to be the bat.
Right.
But a rock, it's not really like something to be a rock. Like, it's just a rock. It doesn't have any experience. So the expression of being, the awareness that just awareness of being a living thing is consciousness. Having an experience is consciousness. And so when you look at consciousness like that, it's hard to imagine that it is received like a like a radio antenna, but it could still be fundamental to the universe. Like there's this term called panpsychism, where it doesn't come from the top in, it comes from the ground up, and that's how it could be fundamental. And it gets really confusing. I don't just clear. I don't support panpsychism, but I'm open to it being a possibility because we don't really understand consciousness or why it exists. So panpsychism posits it's like something to be an atom. And it's
That's intense.
yeah, and it's like something to be the whole universe, and so it is like something to be a rock, and so that kind of takes out Thomas Nagel's comparison, like right at the core, like
Right,
no, it's
right.
like something to be everything, and so I feel like a lot of people reject that possibility, but we don't have any other confirmations of what consciousness is and how it operates. I would say it's the deepest mystery of the universe. So that's how I like to define consciousness, but it's still something that resists being able to fit into a definition that explains everything about it. It's still a profound mystery, and that's why I'm excited to go with psychedelics with you, go
Right.
towards their investigation. Because psychedelics, I feel, are the best tool to investigate consciousness at a level that will lead to results. Because we haven't found any results yet. And what's been banned for the past 30 years?
Yeah,
Psychedelics.
psychedelics.
Right. So the
I
tool
also-
we need is now available.
Right. I also think on the topic of consciousness and all those things, especially on the topic of panpsychism, the idea of receiving consciousness like receiving it like Wi-Fi, that actually does interest me a little bit, but more, and I don't buy this as fact, I just take it as an interesting idea. But Elon Musk's idea that this is not base reality, that it's actually a simulation.